Hi, everybody.
We're about ready to go live, so please mute yourself if you don't mind.
Well, let me call the meeting to order, and we're going to have a green theme tonight. Kelly Schalter has joined us from the Michigan Recycling Coalition to talk about using social media for environmental change. And so let me turn it over to Kelly. Hey, welcome, Kelly. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay, so yeah, I'm Kelly Schalter. I work for the Michigan Recycling Coalition. It's a statewide recycling nonprofit, and our office is in Lansing. We're a coalition of individuals, businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations that recycle. And one of the programs we offer is our Recycle Michigan campaign. The Recycle Michigan campaign was launched in 2014, and its intent at the time was to connect recycling programs in Michigan to a statewide brand, both giving it legitimacy and reminding Michiganders that recycling is available in Michigan where we live, work, and play. Recycle Michigan signs can be found throughout the state in state parks, private businesses, at recycling drop-offs, as stickers on recycling bins, and even on shirts like the one I'm wearing. While the Recycle Michigan logo was free to use and still is, in 2016, we created a program to partner with organizations throughout the state, providing them with a sign, promotion, and pre-made customizable social media content. As a small staff organization ourselves, we know that social media is both important and difficult. Gone are the days when you could just get an unpaid intern to develop and implement your whole social media strategy. Social media strategy is a real job, and it requires real time and attention, things that are hard to come by for a lot of recycling organizations. The goal of the Recycle Michigan social media plan is to empower smaller time and staff crunched organizations with the ability to leverage the many benefits of social media to educate and enhance programs. I wanted to give you some tips and tricks today that we use for our social media plan that may help you with your social media as well. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of information about social media overall and the value it can bring to you, followed by a series of tips and best practices. I'll also talk about the different social media resources that are out there. So why is it important for your organization to be on social media? Because 3.81 billion people, over half of the world's population, are on social media. No other medium has the same level of engagement. Social media is not just for young people either. In this country, every generation is using social media every day. And you pay nothing to participate aside from the investment of time it takes to create and post content. Since 2012, the average amount of time adults spend on social media has been growing at a steady rate. In 2012, it was roughly 90 minutes per day, but in 2020, it was closer to 180 minutes or 3 hours. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a big jump during 2020. The pandemic has definitely increased the amount of time people spend on social media. So for better or worse, there's never been a better time to step up your social media strategy. This change has other implications too. The time spent on social media reflects a diversion from legacy media and other traditional forms of mass media. So if your strategy is focused on TV, radio, newspaper, outdoor, and doesn't include social, not being on social media doesn't just mean you're missing out on the upside, but there's a downside too, where people may be paying less attention to the other parts of your campaign. Social media is unique in its interactivity. Unlike a newspaper or radio commercial, consumers of social media have the ability to talk back, to like, to engage, or to amplify messages. It reduces friction and barriers to individual action. It creates an environment that inspires information seeking, as anyone who's ever been down a Wikipedia hole can attest to. It also allows for greater targeting of your audience, organically through people self-selecting or through direct targeting if you purchase ads or boost posts. And social media relies on self-identified communities, which encourages trust. People are more likely to believe what's shared by friends or families. This is just to show that you don't have to be a big brand to have and grow a social media following. I just wanted to give you a few stats about our Recycle Michigan social media. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we have grown to a following of over 3,500. Our website traffic averages 28 unique visitors per day, and our newsletter, which we launched last year, has been growing by about 16 subscribers per month. One of the simplest ways to have steady growth with your social media is just simply supplying content regularly. And we want to empower you with the tools to do that. There are so many. And while we want to use all the resources available, I also want you to feel empowered to create your own content. So I wanted to go over some tips and best practices for social media posts. Get right to the point. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Know your audience, make it easy, use available resources, and be fearless with your creativity. The first tip is get right to the point. The average attention span today is only 8 seconds, about the same as a goldfish. So short messages that hook people in the first sentence, and images that catch the eye are all important for keeping your audience engaged. In getting right to the point, you need to be short and concise. This is a post from one of our social media plans. And short posts like this get the point across, and you aren't wasting that 8-second attention span on a lot of fluff. For informational posts, one thing you can do is to imagine someone is getting on an elevator and you have until the doors close to get them a message. What do you say in that time to get through to them? Like something short and simple, like, don't bag your recyclables. Your feed shouldn't just be dry information all the time either. Make sure you're taking the time to lighten it up. Posts with humor are more likely to be shared. And it's even better if you can ask a question or collect feedback, because that engagement helps grow your audience too. Humor boosts information retention. People are more likely to remember social media posts that made them laugh. Laughter gives people a positive experience and makes your post more memorable, and it helps build community. Research shows that just 42% of positive experiences are forgotten, while 60% of negative experiences fade from memory. Posts with pets, kids, and food, and posts with people in them are all especially eye-catching. Bright colors with high contrast are also eye-catching. This can help to draw people in to read the more informational parts of your post. So make it appealing. And make it timely. People are looking for human elements in social media. One way to show that there's a human behind your social media is by following a human calendar. And not just the typical US holidays that come preloaded in your calendar. But if you Google social media calendar, there are tons of hilarious days that you can use to your advantage, like National Donut Day, National Hot Dog Day, National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Not all of them can be directly tied to environmental activism, but many of them can. And sometimes it's fun.
We're losing your audio, Kelly. Kelly, we're losing your audio. Still can't hear her. Here, it came in for a second. It's going in and out. Bad connection.
Going in
maybe.
and out.
There we go. There we go.
Better now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me know if it happens again. Sorry about that.
Okay. It's okay.
Okay. It's important to think about how you frame the message. Positive messages pair well with abstract concepts. Think about what you'll do with items when you purchase them. But if you're putting a negative message out there, like most candy wrappers aren't recyclable, it's better to provide clear instructions. So if you're going to tell people what not to do, you need to tell them what to do instead. Put your candy wrappers in the trash. Tip number 2, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Pictures are a hugely important part of your social media presence. That's why all of our Recycle Michigan social media posts have pictures. The human brain can recognize a familiar object in only 1/10 of a second, which really helps make the most of that 8-second attention span. A social media post with images is 10 times more likely to get engagement than one without. And studies show that people only remember 10% of what they've heard once 3 days have passed. But if you pair a relevant image with your material, people can remember 65% of that information after 3 days. Pictures, they're more accessible to all audiences than just text. This is a pretty long social media post, but you don't actually really need to read it to know what the post is about. Ditch the paper towels and use reusable washcloths. Simple graphics can make your point much faster than a whole paragraph's worth of words. It can also draw people in to actually read the paragraph. Oh, are those washcloths or something else? Oh, they're old textiles, even cooler. And when it comes to accessibility, adding alt text to your images will make them more accessible to people who use screen readers. Videos. Videos can help tell your story too. A few months ago, we started incorporating a video portion of our newsletter. In this portion, people send in their recycling questions, and we have a partner record a message in response. It's an awesome informational tactic for people who have questions because they not only get to see the answers to their questions, but they also get to see through the video exactly how it's implemented. If you have the ability to record things at your site or in the place where the information is most relevant, it helps your audience contextualize what you want them to understand. Live videos are especially engaging on Facebook, so if you have the ability to do that, you should give it a try. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth a whole lot more. Tip number 3, know your audience. Audiences are like onions in that they have layers. Most people will want a little bit of information. Some people will want a little more, and a few people will want a lot of information. Find a way to meet the needs of each of those types of audiences in one post. Good links can do that for those who want more information. Here's an example of a post with a layering of information for all different audiences. Most people will look at it and it may give them pause to consider beneficial ways to dispose of pumpkins that are past their prime. But for some, they're going to want to know specifics. Like the more audience can read the words of the post and see, oh, you can use the guts of the pumpkin to make some delicious pumpkin seeds. And then for those who want even more information, they can click the link, which will connect them to a lot more information about unconventional pumpkin uses. Keep it local. Anytime you can feature an employee or community member with a lesson about recycling, it instills trust in the community and helps spread your message. People love to see the work being done. And again, it adds to that human element that keeps your social media dynamic and engaging. Tip number 4, make it easy. We have the Recycle Michigan logo, which we automatically use in every one of our pre-made social media plans, but it's also open source, free to use, and available on our website. This combined with the Recycle Michigan hashtag helps connect different recycling programs across the state and provide continuity, encourage trust, and show statewide coordination. When someone clicks on a hashtag, they'll be directed to all posts on that platform that use the same hashtag. It's a great way to show coordination around a certain topic. Sometimes the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy has hashtags for specific events like Energy Efficiency Day. So make sure you're following their social media so you can participate with those hashtags. Tip number 5, use available resources. In recycling, we're lucky. There are a lot of resources like these guys who you may recognize, the Recycling Raccoons. They were launched by Eagle in 2019, and their statewide focus is 3 simple themes, which you can see here, rinse, clean and dry, flatten your cardboard, and don't bag your recyclables. If you go to their website, there are free downloadable resources there too. And I know that if you go searching for other topics, there are plenty of other free resources out there. Sometimes it's just a matter of Googling it. One tool that we use all the time, Canva. It's a free tool with paid features. We used it for many years at the base level, totally free. And it's definitely worthwhile in that context. But there's also an option for nonprofits. You can apply for Canva for nonprofits, which gives you access to all the pro features of the software through a grant from Canva. Application for that is very easy. Canva makes it simple to create social media posts. It has pre-made templates that you can customize and lots of inspiration. So if you're looking to create your own content but don't have a graphic designer on staff, it can be very handy. And then tip number 6, be fearless. On the left here is a photo contest that we ran this summer. It was our first time doing a photo contest, but it worked really well for us because we got a lot of engagement and a lot of cute photos of pets with our Recycle Michigan sign. And on the right is just a silly post we produced for our social media plan. We created a Spotify playlist about recycling. I don't know if anyone ever listened to it, but there's nothing wrong with trying new things, and you never know when something will be unexpectedly popular and take off. And finally, make your data work for you. All the social media platforms have built-in tools to help you analyze your performance. In Facebook, it's called Insights. In Twitter, it's called Analytics. And Google has Google Analytics or Google Search Console. It's a little more complicated to install to your website, but once you have it, it can help you learn a lot about your website's performance. Keep an eye on your analytics. They can tell you which posts generate the most excitement, which types of posts get the most views, and even in some cases, what time of day is best for making posts. But again, the best way to keep followers engaged is to continue posting regularly. So that's what I've got. Thank you so much.
That was awesome, Kelly, and thank you for this timely message as we seek to be better at distributing information. I think we wanted to open it up for questions and answers if comments if people have any. Thank you for being here. I'll let John take over from here.
Well, Kelly, let me ask you a question about groups. I know there's a difference between pages and groups on Facebook, and I wonder, do you make use of groups? And if you do, how do you make use of them?
We do, but I think it's more for groups, we do more internally focused, like with just our members. Things that are really applicable to more the more on the industrial side, I think, of recycling, and less just average citizen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So for your membership, whether they're business, you have individual members too, right? Or
We do, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Okay. And do you find that your groups is that really helpful to kind of keep the information flowing?
Yeah, I think it's useful. And it depends on really the level of engagement of the members of the group. We don't have a lot of activity in our group. I would say our pages are much more active.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you get the word out that you even have a page, or don't you worry about that?
I think a lot of times it's been a long time since we first started, but generating content, making.
Oops, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. Just posting content and sharing it, to your personal page, and having your friends share it, and spreading around to everybody that and having them share it can grow, the basically number of eyeballs that see it. And as people see your content and like it and share it and engage with it, that will grow your audience too.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Kelly or comments? Bill, go ahead.
Great presentation. Thanks so much for coming this evening. I don't know how much you're aware of John and Leroy's latest scheme of creating a green neighbor network. So we as a township kind of communicate environmentally now through Leroy's newsletter, the Green Gazette. And we're trying to build a network of folks in the neighborhoods who can pass environmental information through their own social media networks. And I'm curious about your thoughts of that sort of strategy of trying to distribute through those, whether it's Nextdoor or Facebook pages. Other folks are distributed different ways.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely something that I think can be done, because it's kind of like how we do our social media plan for Recycle Michigan. I think how we deliver it is we create a spreadsheet with images and text, and we provide it to all of our partners, and they can just copy and paste those to their social media. So if you wanted to do a coordinated effort like that, I think you could definitely do that and then distribute it either through Facebook group or a page or through Nextdoor even directly. But yeah, I think that's a really, I think it's a good way to show coordination among multiple different groups of people. So I think it's a good idea.
Go ahead, Phil. Oh, we don't hear you yet. Still don't hear you yet.
How about now?
Yep.
Anyway, great presentation, Kelly. I recently heard a speaker from Granger who was saying that one of the issues they have with recycling is that the secondary market or the purchasing market for recycling goods had collapsed a couple of years ago with the Chinese cutting off imports. I wondered, you mentioned the industrial side, and where are we at with that? How is the market for purchasing a recycled good?
Well, that's a complicated question. And I don't necessarily have all the, tools on me right now to answer it fully, but I can say, that was an issue, but I think that is being addressed by creating more local consumers of that material. The other big, wrench in everything is that, with COVID, material streams have changed a lot. And so there's just a lot of movement and adjusting that needs to be done kind of all the time. So, but it does happen. It just sometimes it takes time.
Ned, go ahead.
Thank you, Kelly. That was a really, really interesting presentation. One of the things that, so I'm a relative newcomer to things like Nextdoor, but I already find myself deleting their posts, deleting not the posts, but the emails that tell me about their posts. So how do you regulate the sort of level of bombardment that your interested parties are willing to accept? I'm aware of, well, my alma mater sends out stuff, and recently their way of presenting things actually included an option for kind of a summary, like a weekly summary rather than every single notification, something like that. Is there an easy way to kind of titrate the level of attention in terms of the week, in terms of communications that people are open to?
I'm not sure about with Nextdoor, but I do know, like for Facebook and Twitter, a lot of those settings are personal. The person has to set those notification settings for themselves. So you can go in and set, I want to know every time Recycle Michigan posts something, or I want to get no notifications. So a lot of times it's kind of up to the person to choose that level. I think that it's actually a really good point that sometimes it's helpful to remind people, hey, don't forget to like and follow our page so that you get notifications, that kind of thing.
Well, right. No, I mean, I'm just sort of trying to figure out I get lots of political stuff. I probably delete 100 political messages a day, and they're mostly things I would support, but I just don't have the mental capacity or the time to attend to each one. And so that's the issue of sort of choosing your level of communication is, I think, ends up being important, because otherwise people just sort of say, well, if I'm going to turn it off, I'm going to turn it all off.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was curious about, if there's a way to make sure you can tune it, not just via Facebook, but like email messages, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and email's a little.
Ned, please.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say email's a little tricky, because once once somebody unsubscribes, you cannot legally email them again.
Yeah.
So yeah. So having options for people is probably a good idea for that. We don't currently have that option, but I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, for sure.
Thank you.
That makes me wonder too, do you have any rules of thumb you use yourself where you don't send more than a certain number of emails per week or month? Do you, because, you know, I think Ned's brought up a good point of people getting overloaded and then just tuning out. Do you have any rules of thumb that you kind of use so you don't kind of drive people away?
And I wish I could say that I had scientific reasonings for why, but we do send one newsletter a week to our members, and then during the lead up to our conference, which is our big event of the year, we send another a separate email. So maximum 2 emails a week.
Other questions or comments?
One of the latest efforts at reaching out to the community with environmental messages has been around some musical compositions, jingles. Do you have any experience with those and tips for what works and what doesn't?
I do not have any experience with that, unfortunately, because we're like I said, we're a small staff, so we don't usually do that level of marketing. But yeah, definitely something I'd be interested in, but we haven't pursued that yet.
Other questions or comments? Okay, I think, well, again, Kelly, thank you very much. That was very informative. We really appreciate you taking the time to kind of help us kind of figure out the social media stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry about the audio issues.
That happens.
Do
Thank
we
you
get
so
to
much,
keep a
Kelly.
copy of your presentation?
I can send it to Leroy if you Leroy want to send it out.
That would be great. Yeah.
That would be swell, because apparently we were not able to record the first half of your presentation on the television broadcast. So thanks again, Kelly.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that takes us to the approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to make any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Bill, okay, a second. Rose, if you're in support, please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, moving on to the minutes. Does anybody want to make any additions or corrections to the minutes? Jim?
I think I'm looking at the minutes. I've got enough papers here floating around that I'm not quite sure. But under old business, item 7, the Tree City update, there was something that said a requirement of the state is tree care. And that is not the state that has that requirement. It's the Arbor Day Foundation who sets the standards for Tree City USA. So I think we ought to, now the state urban forester deals with it, but it's really the Arbor Day Foundation that sets the standards.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, thank you for the correction. Looks like Leroy got that. Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, with that friendly amendment, can I hear get a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, Tom, a second. Jim? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, public remarks. Do we have any public, any individual on the Zoom here or on the phone that would like to make a public remark?
I will remind people that we can take telephone comment at 517-349-1232 for the people joining us via Comcast 21 Home TV and or any of the various internet streams. Alternatively, if there were people in public, we could use the raise hand feature, but it looks like everyone's already been promoted to a panelist. I'm not hearing any telephone rings. I think you're safe to proceed, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, Bill, go ahead.
I was just curious, given the presentation we heard when Mr. Geeves talked about the various internet streams, where are we being streamed besides on home TV?
I believe that when we are on home TV, they're always doing the Facebook Live and the Twitter live streams as well. We would want to check in, and I can find out in just a few minutes here if that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, they're just messaging me now. It's Facebook Live and YouTube.
Thank you. And, you know, we'll have another opportunity for public comments at the end of the meeting. And let's see, we don't have anything under new business. So I guess we move on to old business and green infrastructure grants for schools. I think Leroy has kind of indicated to me earlier that we have one proposal from Hazlet and 3 from Okemos. And I've got some questions for the commission, but Leroy, would you like to do some screen sharing and give us a brief overview of what we've gotten with respect to letters of interest?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at my shared screen here, but basically we've got 3.5 responses so far. One from Hazlet. We have one from Okemos High School, which relates to a rain garden, and Luca can certainly elaborate if he's heard any more on this, but Mike Fargo is the new operations director, and he is excited about this and wants to work with us as well as the teachers who are working with their students to support something that's, his main concern is something that's manageable and not going to cost extra in terms of maintenance, headaches. But he's very interested in maybe going even beyond this rain garden concept to make the school more green, more animal friendly. And then we have Montessori Radmore that wants to improve a nature trail, and also their greenhouse and herb garden needs some repair. And then Hazlet Middle School is looking at to create a outdoor classroom in their courtyard area. I think I didn't mention Quinoa's project, but that's looking to control invasive species and then add butterfly friendly or pollinator friendly plantings around the school. So.
Thank you, Leroy. And, you know, the deadline for mini proposals is March 15th. And it looks like because we have 4 proposals that we may have to score them. And so I have a question for the group. You know, I think we should look at scoring proposals from Hazlet and Okemos separately. And I'd like some feedback on that. My reasoning is that we kind of indicated that in the solicitation, but also I think we would want to have at least one project in Hazlet and one project in Okemos. You know, if at all possible, we'll fund all the projects, but you know, again, with 4 proposals and not knowing exactly how much money they'll ask for, that may not be possible. We may have to score them. So what do people think about scoring Hazlet and Okemos separately? Luca?
I just wanted to put in some input for the rain garden. So
go ahead.
Yeah, we had this idea last year and we tried to put it in motion around January. And we brought it to the school board and they turned it down instantly because we would have had to tear up a concrete patch. And I've emailed the head of the Earth Club and I'm waiting for an email back of what they want to do with it. But yeah, so I don't know how or I don't know if the rain garden is actually a because we were looking for grants last year too to help fund the project, but I don't know if it's an actual feasible project or if it's just something they're trying to throw out.
For that kind of intelligence. Yeah, we you know, the other thing related to funding is Leroy had good news the other day that Granger had offered us $1,000 for the program, and so I thought that was very good news. And who knows, you know, if we get to the point where maybe we can fund a second or third or fourth project maybe we could approach them to give us a little extra money. But so, I mean, hopefully we'll fund as many projects as possible, but, you know, again, we may be having to score them and just pick what we consider the best projects. Any issues with scoring? Or what do people think about scoring Hazlet and Okemos separately? Any
I guess I just had one question. In these letters of interest, did anybody include any preliminary budget? Did anybody indicate what their budgets might be at all?
I don't think so, Leroy.
Not specifics. I can send out kind of the summary of the letters of inquiry. But obviously I think the rain garden was mentioned at around $5,000. Laura Bell was a teacher I've been talking to, and she seems like she's connected with the operations person. So that was good news. And, but it does sound like a little more complicated, a little more expensive than some of the other projects potentially.
And Ned, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to ask whether, you know, sometimes since we don't have a giant pot, can funds like this be used as sort of, you know, to shake loose matches from interested, especially for schools, interested parents or whatever? I'd really like to see some way of at least thinking about possible multipliers, you know, make Granger businesses, et cetera. And I have no idea exactly how to do that. You know, people always say, well, we all offer this and you know, if your donation will be matched or whatever. But I always think to myself, well, if they're willing to, you know, commit that much money to match anyway, they're basically going to give that money to them anyway. It doesn't work on me very well. But
I think that's
anyway,
a good point. We need to kind of explore that possibility as much as possible. I mean, ideally, would fund everything if we could.
Right.
Phil?
Picking up on Ned's idea, there are two good foundations that are associated with both the Hazlet and the Okemos schools. They do teacher matching grants, and perhaps if we could challenge them to match some of these grants that we're going to apply. The teachers know about these already. Another good question to ask, Leroy, to ask those who are submitting it, have you sent this to the Okemos or Hazlet School Foundation yet? They may or may not have, but I would think that if these are going to be focused on the schools, they would be good candidates for providing some significant portion of the funding for it. Another corporate idea, if you've seen their campus, you can see that they're clearly committed to a very green footprint, is Delta Dental. I mean, a huge campus there, and they've clearly made a huge investment in trees and landscaping and so forth. Millions of dollars worth the past couple of years. So
those are very, very good ideas.
Thank you.
Courtney?
Yeah, great idea. Delta's always a good one to tag into, Bill. To speak to the rain gardens too, to touch on what Luca was mentioning, they actually had a consultant come and explain like what it would take to input a rain garden. And I think their biggest concern was the maintenance of the rain garden. And from what I understood, it may have just been maybe a lack of education on really the idea of as a rain garden is there's pretty much no maintenance once it's installed. So there might be an opportunity there too, but it would require some, you know, the advocate, whomever has, whoever wrote the letter of interest probably could be that person. So there might still be opportunity for that. To touch on your question about Hazlet versus Okemos, I would like to see some equitable opportunity there, right? So, you know, Hazlet tends to be in the background a lot of the time, and I'd like to see that both could, you know, individual school districts have an opportunity. So I like that idea, John.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Yeah. And let me ask a related question procedurally, and we may have talked about this at the last meeting. You know, as of now, Leroy and Rose and I would be the selection committee. And I'll ask you this again at our March meeting, but does anybody at this point know that all of you could be on the selection committee, because it'd be an issue of kind of scoring proposals. Would anybody, do you know at this point that you'd like to be on the selection committee? If so, just kind of raise your hand. Okay. Okay, Courtney. Okay.
I
Super.
would, but I know you need a odd number, so that's okay.
Well, but Jim just raised his hand.
Okay.
Did you, so Jim, okay, we got Courtney and Jim. That's super. That gives us 5 of us. The other thing and we may have talked about this last time, is I'm kind of thinking the selection committee comes up with scoring, comes to the environmental commission, makes recommendation to the environmental commission, which makes the decision. And that, because because of previous discussions, I'm assuming the township board doesn't really want to get involved in making the decision. But what I'm thinking is, after the environmental commission makes the decision, we would ask the students to actually make a presentation to the township board to make them aware of what the projects are going to be. I see Courtney, I think, shaking her head yes. Am I on the right track here, or?
Yeah, I would agree. I think presenting, and Phil, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we look to the experts, which would be the commission, to do the, the hard work and and then bring it to us with your recommendations, and then presentations or any way to educate us on the issues is fantastic.
Super, thank you. Yeah, and Leroy?
Go ahead and finish your thought, John.
Oh, I was just going to kind of confirm, we've got 5 people on the selection committee now. We have proposals, many proposals coming in March 15th. We've had a number of good ideas for cost sharing, which needless to say, will encourage the applicants to look into. And then I would expect that we would, at our April meeting, the selection committee would come back to the environmental commission with recommendations, because then we'll have enough notice to the schools and the teachers and students to get started in the spring, so that we can get the projects done this year. So that's kind of yeah, Bill.
Sort of a procedural question. So right now we have sort of brief letters of interest. Is the expectation that there would be a more full description of the project and its cost and timeline? And if so, how many of the potential applicants would be invited to go ahead and invest the time to develop a more full proposal? It can really help people not to waste time if they're given some indication of their chances. And at that point, the more the scoring criteria can be made transparent to the applicants, the more fair the system will be.
Now that's a good, those are all good points. And, the committee has come up with scoring criteria, which could be shared with the applicants before the deadline of March 15th. We've been talking about certainly having proposals come in March 15th and kind of laid out what should be included in the proposals, which is kind of what you expected, budget and timeline and the description of the project and so forth. But we've called them mini proposals so that they realize that we're not expecting them to write 100 pages for a $5,000 grant. But those are all excellent points. Roy, you had something you wanted to say?
I guess related to that, personally, it'd be great to support all the projects. Getting back to Ned and Phil's suggestion, giving people encouragement to look for other matching support, even if we can't totally fund the project, could be a part of the response, so that we encourage everyone to move forward. I also briefly just wanted to mention that 3 other people besides Luca have offered to provide some support to the projects. Ben Holland, who's studying engineering right now, has offered to be a resource for Okemos. And Midmiac, Teresa Lark, who's created lists of pollinator-friendly plantings, has offered to assist. And then another guy named Nathan Brown from Turf Jockeys, who did the rain garden at the market, has offered to provide some technical expertise as well. And eventually it'd be nice to get a little resource sheet so that anybody who's interested in doing a rain garden or green infrastructure project could sort of find out more easily where they can get some expertise and assistance. So just throwing that out there, if you've got other resources to add to that menu of options for people.
Yeah, thank you, Leroy. Yeah, Jim?
I'm a bit conflicted here. I was very disappointed that we were not able to plant trees at Hazlitt when we planted them at Okemos. So I'm definitely wanting to get both school systems included somehow. But somehow saying that we're going to grade them separately and Hazlitt's going to be graded on one scale or one system, and the Okemos is going to be on a different. I could see I'm conflicted with that. I'd kind of prefer to have all of them graded, and then hopefully, and I don't know how to do this, but hopefully have Hazlitt or have neither one get the lion's share without, and because. And let's just take the terrible example and say that Hazlitt assumed that they were going to get one. They didn't put very much effort into it, and we end up giving it to them anyway. Whereas the other group worked hard to compete with each other, and they don't. So it's conflicted for me.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind too is that any of these proposals, they have to have an acceptable, a good proposal to get funding regardless. And so, that's kind of a given that we're not just going to give money out unless it's a good project. And, we don't really know how much money the different projects might request. So with all the good funding ideas that have been thrown out, maybe this will all kind of work out. I hope so. Courtney, go ahead.
It's a very good point, Jim. We issue grants through our unit all the time at the Department of Health and Human Services, and we have a minimum score, right? So you have to hit a minimum before you can even make it to the next pool. So that might be a way to address that concern, Jim.
That would probably help.
Thank you. Other comments or thoughts about the green grants for schools before we move on? Any other thoughts? Actually, I'm very happy that we've got this amount of interest, because I know when we first talked about this, we were worried about how students are busy and teachers are busy, and we weren't too sure what kind of response we'd get. So I'm thinking that, boy, we got 4 letters of interest. That's super. I think that's going to mean for a very good program. Phil?
Jim, regarding your comment about not getting trees in Hazlitt last year, I don't think that, we all know that wasn't intentional. It was just, it was the fact that Hazlitt wasn't ready for those trees and Okemos was. It was a great location. It is possible that if the Environmental Commission were to identify a location in Hazlitt that wanted a similar number of trees, or even half as many trees, and a proposal could be brought to the board during the year to say, this was a big success in 2020 with Okemos, we'd like to do it in 2021 in Hazlitt. Will the board fund this? Board has very strong green values, and so I think a proposal brought before the board for funding of just trees, apart from these grants and the funding for that, but I think a tree grant for Hazlitt would have legs with the board this year. But they're not going to go out and do the investigation themselves. But if the Environmental Commission brought something to the board, I'm hopeful, and Courtney seems to be nodding her head in agreement that the board would fund something like that. We just need to identify where they would go, how many we need, because the feedback the board got after the Okemos trees went in last fall was just phenomenal. People loved it. They wrote the board members, they wrote the manager Walsh. It really made a big impact in the community, and I'm sure it will in Hazlet as well.
You know, and Phil or anybody else, do any of you have ideas who might be approached in the Hazlet area to kind of explore opportunities? Anybody comes to mind that we could kind of talk to?
Apart from the superintendent, Steve Cook, my kids have been out of the Hazlet schools for almost 50, well, over 20 years now. Excuse me, 10 years now. It just seems like 20. Ned, you might have better connections than I do with who in Hazlet might be a good person connected with the schools that might have some ideas.
Well, Evie, my wife, was very active with the foundation and also the, band boosters and things like that. So she might actually have some ideas. I am not as connected as I would like to be, but there's also, a group that isn't the schools. That's the so-called Hazlet Beautification Committee, I guess they call themselves or something. They may have some thoughts about, they mostly put plantings at corners where there's seen, for example, Hazlet and Lake Lansing Road and Marsh Road, things like that. But they may have thoughts about where, places that would benefit from a little bit of beautification in the tree sense as well. I will talk to her about that, and maybe we'll have some other thoughts.
Super.
Don't forget, most of the things I think about are atomic and molecular. They're kind of smaller than trees.
This is something big you could work on. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just want to add a little word here. I think the selection that we had in Okemos was not specifically the school. It just happened to work out that way, that there was that property at an important intersection. It wouldn't necessarily be in Hazlet at Hazlet High School. Wouldn't have to be. It could be, but I'm not sure that that's the critical thing.
Well, that kind of is in line with Ned's thinking about maybe the Hazlet Beautification Group can be helpful. Yeah. Anything else before we kind of move on to? Okay, moving on to let's see, Tree City update. Rose or Jim?
Or Bill?
Or Bill?
These past few weeks, we have been kind of pushing around a draft or a tree care ordinance, a draft of a tree care ordinance, because that is one of the standards that is required for the Tree City certification. You need to have a tree board and you need to have a tree care ordinance. So we've been looking at that a bit. And then earlier today, we had a little meeting of the minds. We spoke with Luann over at the Parks Department, because we feel that the Parks Department and the Department of Public Works needs to take a look at this and make sure that everything jives and all the language makes sense and that everybody's on the same page and everybody's on board. Because we are a township, this is a lot more complicated than it would be if we were a city structure. So right now they're reviewing that draft, and we're just waiting on what they've got to say.
Sounds like progress. Jim or Bill, do you have anything you want to add to that, or? Okay.
Well, just to maybe amplify a little bit the discussion with Luann, the complication that we face as a township is that when we talk about public trees, there are some public trees that are on township property, and some of that property is parks and land preserves, and those get managed by different groups of people, Public Works and by parks. And then we have street trees that are managed by the road department. But we also have street trees that are installed under new developments by the planning department. So whereas in the sort of model of a city having an urban arborist who controls all the public trees, we've got a disparate group of departments that are responsible. So it's a little bit more complicated, but you know, the great thing about working in Meridian Township is that the director of Parks and Rec sits right next to the director of Public Works and knows the director of planning, and they all talk to the road department all the time. So it's not that hard to get them to sit down and figure something out. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Bill.
And I was just going to add that they all seem excited and on board with this idea. Nobody's pushing back.
That sounds very good. That sounds very positive. Other comments or questions? Okay, moving on to the chair's report. I had the pleasure of participating in the annual boards and commissions meeting with the township board. And I learned the township has a lot of boards and commissions. we a lot of things I didn't know that township was involved with. So, but I found it very helpful to kind of learn what everybody is up to. And boy, a lot of good things are happening in the township, that's for sure. And the board, as you all know, is very supportive of the Environmental Commission, and you know that was obvious with some of the comments that were made. So that was it was a long meeting with all those boards and commissions, but it was definitely worthwhile. That's the only thing I have to share. Leroy, I think we're up to staff report.
Don, can I ask you a question about the joint boards and commission meeting? I noticed when the ZBA chair, Ms. Mansur, was making a report, she listed a number of the Zoning Board of Appeals cases that they had, and one of them that she mentioned was a wetland setback variance. And if I had previously known that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes decisions on wetland setbacks as a zoning variance, then I must have forgotten it. So it was kind of news. And I'm aware of another case where the ZBA, maybe it's the same case, I'm not sure. And I feel like I've been around for a while, and if I knew that, I forgot about it. So I'm curious if we might learn a little bit more about how often it is that the ZBA is making decisions on variances and wetland setbacks, and how that's going. Just it feels with the Environmental Commission assuming the role of the wetland board, that maybe some increased communication or whatever would be helpful.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Very good point, Bill. I was a member of the ZBA for a year, and there was quite a few individual cases that came regarding variances for wetland setback. We have a lot of variances for all kinds of setbacks, right? So that kind of fell within that same realm. But I was talking to Kendra, who's on the phone today, regarding that as well, is that, you know, having that conversation and involving the Environmental Commission and some of these other major decisions, I think is really a really great idea. And just reminding folks, and even myself on the ZBA before I was on the Environmental Commission, that we have an Environmental Commission and that we have this group of experts that can help us make some better decisions. So I think that's a really good point, and I think we need to think about that a little bit further.
Yeah, we have liaisons to a number of other boards and commissions, so maybe that's something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ned?
I have to admit that, I mean, I've been around for a little while too, but I didn't, I never thought of wetland setbacks as things that were mutable. I thought those were essentially set from higher authorities, like for example, the state level. And I wouldn't have thought ZBA would have the authority to modify them. You know, that's different from a property setback or something like that, where it's aesthetic, but as long as everybody around agrees, you know, that's fine. This is something with a direct environmental impact, potentially. And so I guess I'm surprised that those things are even on the table. Hearing that. Anyway, I wasn't aware that that was possible. I guess I'm sort of echoing what Bill said.
I do think, so I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and Kendra's our expert and she's on the phone, but the 20-foot setback is state level regulation. The 40-foot setback is a Meridian Township regulation. So I think that's where the variance comes in. It's within that 40-foot setback. Not to say it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I'm just saying I think that's been where the variance has been approached when I've been around.
That was a helpful clarification. Well, okay.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I think, Leroy, I think we're up to staff's report.
I'm gonna just save my comments for some of the other topics that are coming up. I did want to just briefly mention, I think most of you saw the recent resignation for the Environmental Commission. So that means we will have another opening, and just encouraging people to get the word out. And we already have one person who's expressed an interest in applying. But just throwing that out there.
Luckily,
then,
you just built a great big green neighbor network, so you got a big network to reach out to.
Yeah, probably everybody got the email from Susan, but Susan, because of her other commitments, Susan Maston had to felt that she should resign. So, you know, I think all of us appreciate all the work she's done over the years. So I'm sorry to see her go, but I understand other commitments.
By the way, there is a pretty formal tradition of resolutions of appreciation. She's been, and we can find some template in prior minutes.
Thank you, Bill. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
it would be really nice to try to bring in somebody with similar degree of water appreciation, because she is truly an expert in that area.
Yeah.
I also wanted to just briefly mention that in responding to Susan and expressing my verbal appreciation and responding to her willingness to be to work on a sort of an ad hoc basis if there's a project that fits with her interests and time. But maybe there's another supportive, like Bill mentioned, the Green Neighbor Network is one way people can participate in environmental projects, but maybe there's an advisory role that I don't know if other boards or commissions have those people who are kind of lurkers who provide input and assistance as needed, but might be a way for people who don't want to attend a meeting every month to also contribute creatively. So I'll just throw that out, and I'm pretty much done with my my comments for now.
Okay, thank you, Leroy. And that brings us up to the Environmental Justice Work Group. Rose, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, actually, Courtney, did you want to talk at all about what we had talked about before, or are we going to hold off on that?
I don't mind mentioning it. There was a few emails regarding some violations regarding the Winslow Trailer Park. And so there was an opportunity for folks to improve some of the trailers that were there. And I didn't have enough information, so I spoke with Mr. Menzer and Director Kieselbach, and apparently the particular trailers that need the upgrades, if you will, and or to abide by codes are vacant. So it's really up to the property owner at that point. We thought if there was an opportunity where actual residents needed assistance in improving their own properties or their own housing, that maybe that was a opportunity for us to gather, you know, maybe a group of volunteers to help them. I've seen that in many communities where, you know, retired engineers or construction workers that come together and they help folks in need. So unfortunately, I guess fortunately is there isn't folks in that trailer park that have that need right now, but it was one of those housing kind of environmental justice things that we thought maybe we could help with. But the good thing is everybody living there is in habitable housing, and that the landlord and or the property owner is working to improve the other units there that need that.
Yeah. So if anything like this should come up again, I thought that this might be a great thing to talk to our Green Neighbor Network about, just reaching back into the community and helping out. Anybody have any comments about that in particular? Question? Okay, the one other thing that I wanted to tell you all about, and I talked a little bit about it this morning at the Green Dialogue, in the Green Dialogue chat, is that I sat in on a little Zoom chat with the Michigan Environmental Justice Council that was about the intersection of Black Lives Matter and environmental justice. And it was very, very informative. And I did include a link to that earlier in the dialogue. So I don't know if Leroy has shared that or not, but I can share it later. Anyway, there were two experts. One was from the Sierra Club, and he was coming from more of a public health perspective. And then there was another one who was an organizer in Detroit, coming kind of from a criminal justice perspective. But the whole point of the discussion was just about how all of these different systems that we've got in place, our criminal justice system, our health system, our real estate, our education systems, all of these create environmental impacts or fallout. And so the discussion was about that. And the takeaways, the big takeaways, I have my notes here finally, I didn't have them this morning. The things that people outside of those communities can do to help. Big things are lobbying, supporting the policies that are going to affect systemic change, the larger change. I think that so much of what we do, we focus local and we focus small and we focus grassroots. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, people of privilege can actually help more by going bigger and by going macro and helping to transfer the power and the voice back to the people who are actually being impacted. So I don't want to go on and on and on, but I have quite a bit of information. There were some specific bills that they talked about that I can share with you later. But I think that we should post a link to that discussion, and if any of you have the time to listen to it, I would highly recommend it. It was very informative.
Thank you, Rose. Any other questions or comments?
Is that the Facebook link, Rose?
Yes, it was
Okay.
filmed in.
I'll post it on the chat.
They were up to Sustainable Development Work Group. Leroy, do you have any further information about the green infrastructure audit and Tri-County Regional Planning Commission? Have they started their kind of work, the regional committee?
My screen just froze up. Well, there it is. No, I don't have an update on that. But kind of on a related note, Cliff got the idea for the green infrastructure audit from SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. And they have agreed to speak at our April Environmental Commission meeting about some of their successes doing the green infrastructure audits and other kind of related projects that they're involved with. So they might give us some ideas. They also have an excellent manual on low impact development it's available on their website. The other thing I just wanted to mention, kind of related to this environmental review of our code of ordinances, is that there's a number of places where we might still broaden our thinking about what's possible in terms of our policies and procedures and codes. I'm just going to share my screen real quickly, if I can find which screen that's on. Oh gosh, maybe not. Let's see here. Sorry, give me 2 more seconds here. Oh boy. Well, maybe I'm not going to share it right now.
This is like waiting for the banjo player to get in tune.
Oh my God. Well, I'll just read what's on my screen. The Regional Climate Initiative that's emerging. We're going to be coming up with some interesting regional policies. We might also stay tuned to some of the developments in East Lansing, kind of related to their green building procedures. John has mentioned the Ann Arbor's electric vehicle ordinance. Let's see, Michelle Belasker with the Ingham Conservation District has shared a native plant ordinance that one community adopted. Anyway, there's a number of these types of opportunities that are emerging right now that we might just stay tuned to as we continue this environmental review of our codes, our ordinances, our policies, our procedures. I'll share this list in the chat window. And I think I just have too many screens open on my computer right now.
Well, Roy, it sounds like some good topics for future green themes too, what other communities are doing, so.
Good point.
Yep.
So that's all.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think on to the committee reports, and I think Leroy alphabetized it, so Board of Trustees is up first. Courtney?
I thought that was new.
I think it is.
So we've actually had quite a bit going on in even in this short period of time, which is fantastic. We're getting work done quickly. I'll speak to some social justice that relates to environmental justice, that relates to the commission. As a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, we did adopt a non-discrimination and fair employment policy, which some people know as ban the box. So what that does is it takes that checkbox off of the application of whether you've been convicted of any type of crime, and allows for that fair opportunity for your skills and your experience to show prior to a background check, of course, once you know become a top candidate for a position at the township. So I think that was a really good a big win for the DEI work group. Also, just last night we commemorated Black History Month. So that's really exciting. And again, I said last night, I have a friend that said to me, great, February, Black History Month. It's the shortest and coldest month of the year. And I tried to remind folks that it's also Abraham Lincoln's and Frederick Douglass's birthdays, as well as the NAACP was established in the second week of February as well. So there was some significance even of folks of non-color, and you know, it probably was unintentional, but so that was really important. We adopted part of our 2021 goals was going 100% renewable energy for the township by 2035. So that stays on our goals. So we're really excited about that. And the only other thing to bring up is that there's been a lot of talk and work around wetlands specifically. We've had some projects on the board that has brought some discussion regarding wetlands and either whether it be, you know, setbacks or development or mitigation. But I just want to give a lot of credit to Kendrick Rasheshi that has worked really hard with a lot of folks on this board to create this wetland outreach and pamphlet. And I know, Leroy, you've worked on that. I believe, Bill, you've worked on that. And I think it's ready to roll out. What I've understood is that there may be a need for some resources for printing and distribution. So I think that's something that we can work on and see what we can do to help get that word and get that information out to the community. And maybe it needs to start at a targeted approach, or maybe, you know, I don't know. Hearing from the individual that did the presentation earlier, a lot of social media. So that's a really good opportunity, and she had really great ideas. So that might be something to think about too. So I know wetlands been a big topic. It will continue to be a big topic for me. So as you know, as we approach some of these developments coming up, just know that I will probably reach out to you folks for some expert advice.
Well, thank you, Courtney. Any questions for Courtney before we okay, brownfield development, redevelopment?
We had the best kind of meeting, which was that it was canceled for lack of business. So that it was very efficient. We're scheduled to meet February 18th, and I don't have an agenda yet for that, so I can't tell you what we'll be addressing, but that's what's coming up.
Thank you, Ned. And we're up to the energy team. Leroy, do you have those two charts that we could screen share? Or,
I can dig around for them.
oh, is it possible for me to screen share?
Yes,
Okay, I think I've got them on my, let me, let's see what I got here. Oh boy. Where are they?
sounds familiar.
Yeah, oh boy.
I think we need some Jeopardy music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, let me, yeah, well, that wasn't successful. But let me just kind of mention a couple things. One, I asked Leroy for data from last year with respect to solar installations in the township. So I was able to update a couple charts, which I wanted to show you. But actually, I think we had 18 installations in the township last year, 15 residential and 3 commercial. 2 of the commercial were the township installations. And that was less than the year before, but oh, there we go. Can you make that a little bigger? Well, actually, oops, well, anyway, okay. Well, that's okay. Yeah, the top chart is the number of new solar installations in the township. And as you, like I was pointing out, this past year, we had fewer than the year before, but that's not a big surprise because of all the stuff that's been going on with the pandemic and whatever. The commercial installations are in the orange color. And so I think still we're making some pretty good progress. The bottom chart shows actually kilowatts. And as you can see, we're making steady progress with respect to the capacity of the, well, that's a little bigger, of the kind of cumulative capacity of the different installations. So we're up to almost 900 kilowatts. So we're getting close to 1 megawatt of solar installations in the township. So I just wanted to, Leroy got the information from township staff almost immediately. So I was able to update these charts and to continue to kind of monitor the progress as we move ahead. And the other thing I just mentioned is that you know, there's a My Solar Story Zoom meetings every Thursday. And last Thursday, we had the Absolute Solar folks make a Zoom presentation to about 21 participants, talking about the installations at the fire station at the marketplace on the green there. And they did a really good job. And if anybody's interested, you can, those are, that Zoom recording is posted on YouTube. All you have to do is kind of do a search for My Solar Story, and you'll be able to track it down. You know, they had lots of good pictures of the fire station and the farmers market and the solar installations. Let's see, any questions for me, Bill?
Yeah, I was pleased to be able to attend the My Solar presentation on the 2 installations, and they were excellent presentations, great content. I understood almost everything the 2 presenters said, but when the Q&A started, I quickly got buried. We have some very strong expertise in this township on the technical side that was really putting these guys' feet to the fire about were the inverters indoors or outdoors, and how come there were 2, and did they match, and they were in phase. So it's a great community resource, and yeah, really nice job.
Yeah, I found it very educational, just to get more specifics about the 2 projects. And boy, you're right, the questions and answers, lots of information comes out. Let's see.
The one thing I took away from that was that the initial idea, kind of going back to our Okemos Hazlet Schools discussion, was to put equal-sized arrays at the farmers market at the fire station. And when they realized how much bigger the roof is down there and how much the demand for power is constant there, I hadn't realized that those installations are actually supplying meeting fire station needs in real time. They're not just sort of selling it to the grid and buying from the grid, right?
Yeah, and they're providing about 60% of the power to the fire station, and because it's a small installation at the farmer's market, probably 100% of the electricity for the farmer's market from the smaller installation. So we are definitely making progress on our 100% renewable energy goal. And of course, we have, the township budget board, as everybody knows, budgeted $300,000 for this year. So we're going to, again, make very good progress.
I posted the playlist from GLREA and the solar stories in the chat window if anybody wants it. Sorry, Ned. Go ahead, Ned, or whoever.
I just wanted to ask again, I know we keep bringing this up, but if we're really going to get to total renewable energy by 2035, we'll have to have storage. And I want to make sure we keep our eyes on emerging technologies and so forth. It isn't all Elon Musk, but it's still a tough problem. So I'm just curious about where we're going there. Not necessarily that I have any solutions.
No, that's an excellent point. In fact, that reminds me that when we had a discussion with Derek and the Absolute Solar staff about the service center, because the service center is kind of targeted for the larger installation this year. The issue came up of storage, batteries, EV chargers. And I think it was a good discussion because apparently there's an addition plan for the service center too. And so we were able to work with the solar installers to kind of anticipate future needs, which of course could reduce future costs if we kind of do some good planning. So all those, we had a really good discussion about where we're going. If we had batteries, where would we put them? Where would we put EV chargers? And then just so we bring costs down the road when the costs come down and we have more EV chargers too. So that's I'm glad you brought that up, Ned. Yep.
Especially seems relevant since since GM's announcement that they're going to ultimately go all electric. It'd be good to be able to say we're kind of riding that same wave.
Yeah, the energy team has been talking about electric vehicles and been having some discussions with Derek about those issues. So because that's part of the plan too. It's part of the climate sustainability plan. Let's see, green team.
I was just trying to pull up a little Jeopardy music for Bill, but I'll wait on that. The green team is meeting next Thursday to talk about a recycling event this possibly summer or fall. We're also going to be continuing the conversation about recycling improvements at our recycling center. So if people have further thoughts about that, I really appreciated the brainstorm list that we came up with, and many of you attended that tour a few weeks ago. So if you're interested in getting involved, appreciate Tom's involvement. Let's see who else has been on the green team. Let's see. I think mostly Tom has been at some of our green team meetings, but Luca has also. How could I forget Luca? Luca has helped bring in most of the volunteers for our events. So anyway, if you'd like more information about that Zoom meeting next Thursday at 5 o'clock.
All right. And let's see, land preservation.
Well, what can I say about land preservation? Our main staff person, Emma Campbell, came up with COVID just before our last meeting, so we did not have a last meeting. And but she did have things, and I'll have to ask Leroy if she has shared this with you. She has put out the 2021 goals for our land preservation program and the annual report, which I believe was presented at the joint boards meeting. Do you have access to those, Leroy?
Not right at the minute. I might be able to find it.
I just wonder if it would be good. I've got, you know, two rather lengthy packets here that we could just shoot out to people if you could get access, or if I should send it to Leroy and you send it out to them. But
Be happy to do that. I'd be happy to do that, Jim. Thanks.
okay, do you have access, or should I send it to you?
I can get it from Emma, but it wouldn't hurt if you think of it to send it to me as well.
I can probably do that this evening yet.
Okay, awesome.
But I guess I'll just talk about some of the things that we're going to talk about at our meeting next week, I hope, about increasing signage on the land preserves, expand an internship program, and actually pay an intern, try to grow educational outreach and volunteer recruitment, recruitment of volunteers in many capacities of environmental activities, the vernal pools and invasive species. She presented, and you'll be able to get access, how many pounds of nasty weeds were pulled, invasive species were pulled and gotten rid of. She's got a whole list of land management programs that we're going to be looking at for next year. Prescribed fires, invasive species management, stewardship on, let's see, 8 different land preserves and parks that will have some things going on. So it's a nice long list of things that I will get to you, Leroy, and then you can send it out to everybody. Otherwise, I could read about 8 pages, and I don't think anybody's going to tolerate that. So we'll have our meeting next week and talk about the things I just talked about.
Moving on, Tom, to Michigan Township Association and what's going on down at the Capitol.
Well, again, not too much yet. Legislature's just started back again. Mainly just organizational committee meetings at this point. There is some legislation moving on supplemental for COVID relief. However, the legislature and the governor are far apart on that. So where that's going to end up is yet to be seen. But so far, nothing's really happening on the environmental front. But I think within the next week or two, some of those committees will start meeting and we'll see further movement. So.
And Tom, do you anticipate any kind of priority issues that are going to come up, probably related to the environment, or?
There is one major holdover issue from last session that I believe the House Natural Resources Committee will be taking up in the next few weeks, and that's a total rewrite of Part 115, which is our solid waste law. And it's very complicated, very detailed. It's basically being entirely rewritten to focus more on materials management as opposed to landfilling. So a lot of effort on recycling, a lot of effort on composting, things of that nature. So that's probably the biggest one that comes to mind.
I guess we'll stay tuned. Okay, and
okay.
Brings us up to the Planning Commission.
Well, kind of like the BRA, it's been a quiet January. We're all thankful for that. The January 25th meeting was canceled for lack of business, and we continue to work on the mixed-use plan unit development ordinance. I was going to mention that the board discussion of the rezoning the other evening up there off of Central Park and Grand River basically approved a rezoning request that the Planning Commission had had recommended denial of after a couple more conditions were added to the resolution having to do with where the density would be placed. And I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but in that discussion, for all the wrong reasons, I started thinking about tiny houses. And I haven't heard that discussion in the township much before. So something I was kind of piqued my interest to look into our current zoning regulations about minimum square footage area and where we might, the cool thing about this rezoning and what they're proposing is what they call rental by choice. People who want to rent houses and not own. They're not interested in a mortgage, but they're not constrained to living in a small apartment. They can afford a single family home and they choose to rent instead of owning. And that tends to bring certain different architectural requirements and abilities. So that's kind of what got me thinking about, are there things we can do to promote or at least allow different forms of housing than were anticipated back when our code was written. So that's kind of my pet project for planning going into the coming year.
Wow. It's a big project. Yeah, and Transportation Commission.
Yeah, the Transportation Commission at its last meeting got a really nice update on the 2021 roads program, which was also presented to the township board. And once again, the township is very transparent in exactly how it's working to achieve its goals under the roads millage. And by all accounts, we're ahead of pace. That the promises that were made about improving road quality in the township will be met ahead of time at the current rate we're going. And those maps of what's going to be worked on in the coming year are all available on the township website. There's also discussion of the pathway implementation and the use of the pathway millage funds, and that has also sparked some discussion about the treatment of snow and ice on the sidewalks, and so that was also mentioned in the township manager's report to the township board. And that's about it.
Yeah, this morning in the Green Dialogue, we had an extensive discussion of salt and salt alternatives for sidewalks, and that was interesting. I learned a lot. Lots of good discussion on Wednesday mornings, and I think we're up to a public comment period again too. Does anybody from the public or the board want to make any comments? John?
Yeah, I just had one thing. When you're talking about the grants for the high schools to do environmentally appropriate sort of projects, it seems to me, because of my own experience with working on a project, that I will, as it's just about getting to the finish of it, I will think, boy, I should have taken some pictures along the way or done some notes along the way. Maybe this has already been incorporated into what you're proposing that these groups do. But I think it would be interesting not only to see that, but also maybe in terms of promoting this when it's all said and done, to have a little history of the stages on the development of these projects. That was the only thought that I had.
That's a good thought, though. A report, of course, is required. Actually, a kind of an interim report too. But I think you're right. We should encourage them to take photographs, because a lot of this will be lend itself to kind of photos and kind of a record of what gets done, and they could be helpful to folks who want to do similar projects. Yeah. Other comments, questions, anything else before we adjourn?
Just maybe follow up on that real quick. Home TV did a wonderful job recording the tree planting effort. So if they can be attracted to this similar thing, they've got such talent.
Yeah, that's an excellent point too. Yeah. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Jim, second. Okay, Bill, all in favor? Okay. Hey, thanks, everybody. Great discussion as always. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nice job, John.